The transfer window is about to reopen on January the 2nd, indeed, and there beginneth another month of transfers and transfer speculation. So I thought I'd get in there nice and early and produce another of my Championship Most Wanted videos. Obviously, I await the inevitable "he's not going anywhere, we're not selling him" comments. That's not really what this is about. Don't get too defensive if I mention your favourite player. It just means I like him. We are going to start at the top of the table and work our way down every single Championship club and their most wanted player in the forthcoming January transfer window. Norwich, Emi Buendia. A pretty obvious one. This one, I think. Buendia is clearly too good for the Championship. He's only 24 years old, but it does strike me and everybody that sees this guy play that he's a few levels above the Championship, and sadly for you Norwich fans, he may be a few levels above Norwich in the long run as well. A brilliant player, tied down to a fairly long contract, so if he does want to go, and that is the key here, when we have players that are seemingly playing below their optimum level, it does boil down to whether they want to go or not. If he does want to go, they should be able to hold out for a nice high fee. Yes, again, I anticipate the comments of "we don't need to sell, the ball's in our court." We all know how this plays out. If the player does want to go, in the end, they will go. It just depends whether he wants to or not. He may want to stay at Norwich and try the Premier League again with them, if indeed they do go up. But with some of the names linked, it may be a hard sell to keep him at Carrow Road. Swansea, Ben Cabango. Now, Swansea have been very good at selling these past few seasons, raising huge swathes of money for Joe Rodon and Ollie McBurney and Dan James, to name but three. I've gone for Ben Cabango. He's a centre-half. He's only 20. I believe he's already a Welsh international as well. I do like Roberts and I do like Grimes, and there is the obvious caveat that Andre Ayew's contract is up. That might attract a short-term bid from a promotion team, let's just say. However, I've gone for Cabango just purely on the longevity he could provide and the likely transfer fee he could bring in for the Swans. Bournemouth, Josh King. This one seems to have been rumbling on a fair old while and isn't going to go anywhere soon because Josh King is still at Bournemouth. His contract is going to be up in 6 months. Yes, he's not really been in the team, but there may be more to that than meets the eye. It's an asset. It's a potential Premier League goal scorer that we know teams up at the top level will take, and we know that Bournemouth will be keen to cash in on. Yes, there are players like David Brooks who you might want to take instead, but surely the most likely one out of Bournemouth this window would be Josh King. Brentford, Ivan Toney. Yes, I acknowledge he's not very likely to go anywhere, but Brentford seem to have put themselves in a position now where there's not people beating the door down to be leaving the club. They have sold many players over the last few years, but it feels quite stable and steady and solid at Brentford at the moment. The only possibility of Toney going would be a Premier League club expecting and forecasting that his improvement is just going to keep going and trying to get in there early. However, it would take an eye-watering sum of money. Obviously, other players you could mention, David Raya and Rico Henry, were linked with moves in the summer, but then again, so are a lot of Brentford players. And for once, maybe they're more likely to buy than sell in this window. Watford, Ismaila Sarr. This, again, is another stating the bleeding obvious one. Sarr was bought to Watford in the Premier League for a huge sum of money. He's still only 22, and the thought would be that if Watford could recoup or make a decent profit on their investment, that an offer for Sarr might be too good to turn down. Given that Watford sold a fair few players in the summer transfer window, it would stand to reason that Sarr would be at the top of the list for anyone going to Vicarage Road for a new signing this window. Reading, Michael Elise. There's been a few brilliant performances recently from Michael Elise, who's only 19 years old, and we've entered that period now where we're looking at a young guy seeming to find the second top level of English football quite easy at a very young age. And we know what happens when that type of player is available. People want to get ahead of the curve, and if they've got a lot of money in the bank, are happy to make the gamble to get there ahead of others on a potentially special player. Elise could well be that guy. His contract expires in 2022, so a more likely selling time would be this summer, but I suspect Reading might get tested with the odd offer in January. Stoke City, Tyrese Campbell. Yes, with the obvious caveat that Campbell has a bad injury. However, if clubs had already done their research and already done their homework and were planning a bid, I don't know whether that injury would stop them or whether they would wait for a recovery to see Campbell come back into the team. He's been really, really good. He's only 21. The contract is long, so the fee would likely be high, and the injury does make it somewhat of a gamble, but I'd still put him at the top of the wanted list at Stoke. However, given the fit players, I would flag up Harry Souttar, a young, big, strapping centre-half who's probably desirable to certain managers above Stoke's level already. Middlesbrough, Dale Fry. We all know that English centre-halves raise more money than their foreign counterparts, and maybe some of the Brexit-type rules might facilitate this type of transfer. Fry seems to have been around a long, long time. He's still only 23. He's played for a load of the England representative teams, and I think if I was going to go into Borough for one player, it may well be him. Bristol City, Antoine Semenyo. There's perhaps not the riches at Bristol City that there has been in recent seasons. I'm talking about an Adam Webster or a Josh Brownhill or a Bobby Reid or a Lloyd Kelly. They've sold some really good players for some really high fees. Maybe they need a bit of time to develop the next one, and it might be Antoine Semenyo. Only really Tariq Backinson who would be the challenger to that. However, I think Semenyo's a couple of years younger. He's a forward. He seems to be a little bit higher up in the pecking order in terms of Dean Holden's first 11. So maybe someone might go in with an early bid, but perhaps a little bit less in terms of value at Bristol City. However, I would put Semenyo, the youngster, at the top of that. Barnsley, Alex Mowat. Now, I did have Callum Styles pegged for this, but when I did my research, it transpires that Barnsley had already taken up their extra option for another year's contract on Alex Mowat at the end of last season. Therefore, he's only got 6 months of his contract remaining, and you would imagine that this deal would have been tied up quite a while earlier if there would have been a way to do it. Mowat's options are going to be very open, and picture this for a scenario. A relegated parachute team sells an expensive player. They want to pick up a proven championship player, a captain, aged 25. Maybe you might be able to get a good deal for the Barnsley captain in this window. Blackburn Rovers, Adam Armstrong. This one is a little bit of a stating the bleeding obvious, given Harvey Elliott doesn't actually belong to Blackburn, and the normal name that gets thrown up in these type lists, Bradley Dack, has only just returned from a year out injured, and given that Adam Armstrong is right at the top of the Championship top scorers charts, then we may see a bid for the 23-year-old, possibly from one of the Premier League teams, or again a parachute team who may have just sold an expensive forward and might want one replacing. Obviously, when you look at the top scorers charts, there's less chance that you'll get Ivan Toney than there is Adam Armstrong, I think. So maybe we'll see a few people test the water with a bid for Armstrong this window. Cardiff, Robert Glatzel. Now, work with me on this. It was a bit slim pickings at Cardiff. It's one of a couple of examples in the Championship where the best players seem to be loan players or ageing players. Therefore, they're not the players that you would go in and sign, and particularly with the ageing players, unless it was some kind of short-term deal. Therefore, given the European possible market and Glatzel's 26, turning 27, and they invested a fair amount, maybe there's some resale value in there. However, with Kiefer Moore injured, I wouldn't have thought Neil Harris would want to sell Glatzel. Let's just say my conclusion is Cardiff don't particularly have a squad where there are high valued players to go in and pinch. Preston, Alan Brown. Well, we've got to talk about the Preston Four, haven't we? Alan Brown, Dan Johnson, Ben Pearson and Ben Davis, plus a lot of other players are out of contract, and there's a bit of a worry if you're a Preston fan that if one of them doesn't sign, the rest of them might not sign, depending on what's going to happen to this team that Alex Neil has built or is indeed trying to build. I've put Brown maybe just ahead of Johnson and Pearson and Davies. He's the Preston captain. He's only 25. He's very versatile. We've seen him at right back, number 10, central midfield, front left, front right, all over the place. I think there's a really good player in there, and if Brown and his agent decide they're not going to negotiate through January, I think you'll see a fair few offers, and given the injury to Ben Pearson, maybe Brown is at the top of the list for those Preston Four. If you're a Preston fan, you want some deals to be done pretty smartly in the boardroom this January. Huddersfield Town, Harry Toffolo. Yes, I understand there may be more resale value in Mbenza or Pritchard, and if Koroma had stayed fit, I might have gone for him. But I feel Toffolo's played well this season. He's 25. He's worked his way down and back up in English football, and I think he's definitely a Championship-ready fullback. Perhaps if there was an emergency at one of the richer, maybe parachute-funded clubs up at the top of the division, maybe they'd take a punt on getting Toffolo in. Maybe not Premier League ready yet, but I think it's a fun one, and I'm enjoying his development under Carlos Corberan. Luton Town, James Collins. Now, Collins breaks a few rules in terms of getting on my list because he's 30, but his contract's coming up in the summer. So, as a proven Championship goalscorer over the past season and a half, perhaps someone might want to just add another striker into their squad. Maybe someone having a promotion push. And if I'm James Collins, having played a little bit lower down for a lot of my career, I might want to take advantage and try and get that last big contract while I still can. Think Lee Gregory from Millwall to Stoke this past season, or Lyle Taylor from Charlton to Nottingham Forest. We have seen Championship goal-scoring level strikers run their contracts down and get that decent-sized move. Let's see. Millwall, Jake Cooper. Now this one was a flip of a coin between Cooper and Jed Wallace. Cooper is a year younger, and I just feel that given his skill set, there would be more people who would want to take a big, huge, strapping, powerful, consistent centre-back ready to go than maybe take Wallace now for what Millwall might want for him. Cooper has obviously played game after game in the Championship, and I don't know, maybe a higher up Championship team or a Premier League manager, albeit maybe as a squad player at that level, might want to take him. Birmingham, Ivan Sunjic. Now this one was really easy last season with Birmingham because they had Jude Bellingham. I've gone for Sunjic, maybe just over a Christian Pedersen or a Jonathan Lecco down the line somewhere. However, I just think the resale value in the European market makes Sunjic, who I don't think is going to be going anywhere by the way, the most highly valued asset maybe there at Birmingham. I think he came in for 6 or 7 million quid. He's now a season and a half into the Championship. And as I say, European market, resale value, big fee on him, Croatia representative, and I think he's the top of the list at the moment. Pedersen just dropping down a little bit under Karanka's stewardship after the arrival of George Friend in his position, I think. So I've just put Sunjic a little bit ahead there for Blues. Coventry, Gustavo Hamer. Hamer's a lot of fun, isn't he? 23-year-old Brazilian central midfielder, gets red cards and headers from outside of the box. Obviously, he's not been at Coventry long. However, you never know. Someone might come in with a speculative bid. I would have had Callum O'Hare somewhere close, but I think Hamer looks a little bit of a level better at Championship level. Good age, maybe not this January, but hey, you never know. Someone might want to take the punt now he's settled in England and in the Championship. QPR, Bright Asai Samuel. Like Millwall, this was a bit of a flip of a coin between Chair and Samuel. I just feel we've heard more from Samuel agitating for a move than we have from Chair. There were links with a move to Belgium in the summer. That one didn't happen. He's still there. His mate Eze went off to Crystal Palace, and perhaps, given that the contract's coming up at the end of the year, we might see Samuel try and rekindle the move to Europe, or will one of the clubs that I've already mentioned a right-sided player for sell that player and look in the Championship and at Bright Samuel as the replacement. Nottingham Forest, Joe Lolly. Now work with me on this one. I've got a theory. Again, we're in right winger land here, and it might just be that given the predicament Chris Hughton is in at Forest, and given that Joe Lolly hasn't exactly been the first name on his team sheet, despite being a proven decent Championship player, he may be the one that they could raise money quickly with. Again, a right winger. There could be a merry-go-round here if my theories all work out in some kind of way, and you could see Lolly cashed in on and Chris Hughton tried to improve the squad from there. Otherwise, I'd be saying Joe Worrell as a bit of a younger player, but I don't know. I've got a theory and I'm sticking to it. Joe Lolly. Rotherham, Ben Wiles. Ben Wiles is a 21-year-old central midfielder. He's been farmed out to left back and wing back last time I saw Rotherham play. He looks up to the Championship. He's a good age. You wouldn't suspect that Rotherham would sell in January or would need to. They're a historically well-run club. But you never know what a bid can do if it is at the right amount. We should mention Dan Barlasa in this sort of sphere as well, but only recently arrived there and for a fee as well. So you'd maybe have Wiles as the more likely there. I don't see either of them going personally, but hey, it's every Championship club I'm doing here, so we'll go Ben Wiles. Derby County, Louis Sibley. Now, Sibley set himself a ridiculously high bar, didn't he? Scoring a worldie and then a hat-trick in his first 2 games. Hasn't quite lived up to that. If he had, he'd be linked with every big club in Europe this transfer window. However, looking at what else is at Derby, you can still see this as the more likely one for someone taking a punt and trying to get ahead of the curve, in the same way we mentioned for a player like Michael Elise at Reading. Obviously, Derby have done really well with the youth production line, and Bogle and Lowe went off to Sheffield United in the summer. There is still Bird, Knight and Buchanan there. Obviously, Bielik looks very good, but they've invested a fair amount of money in there, so you would imagine it would be one of the ones they brought through would be top of the list. Personally, I don't think they'll sell, but they do need a striker, and this might be the way to raise some money. So I would just put Louis Sibley there as the cash cow at the head of the list. Sheffield Wednesday, Barry Bannon. Yes, I know it's boring. Bannon always makes these lists for me with Sheffield Wednesday. However, one of the reasons they are where they are is they have not protected assets or sold at the right time in terms of raising money under Chansiri. Add into that little melting pot the big links with Brentford in the summer and a possibly expiring contract the next summer, and you've got a very good championship ready player who might just help someone who needs them get over the line for the last 4 or 5 months in the championship. Yes, he's 31, but I don't really see who else you'd be looking at Sheffield Wednesday this window. Wycombe Wanderers, Jack Grimmer. Again, a little bit like Cardiff, slim pickings at Wycombe on the basis that the squad and the first team is built around ageing players and loan players. And that left me basically with Grimmer as the best bet in terms of a right back or a centre back, only 26, loads of experience, loads of games. I believe he's been at Fulham in the past as well. So reasonable calibre there. A defender that is, I guess, championship ready now, that wouldn't cost you the earth. But like I say, and like at Cardiff, mainly the ageing players and the loan players maybe make Wycombe safe from somebody coming and trying to sneak away one of their assets in the window. And there you have it. That is our list of each and every championship club and their most wanted player. Who would you like to see taken from a championship club and maybe arrive at your own club? And with that being said, these are in no way predictions, and so please let's avoid the "we don't need to sell him, he's not going anywhere, you'll have to pay a fortune for him" type comments. Get your own opinions down there in the comments, and I'm sure it's going to be a fun month of January where we'll try and keep up with all the comings and goings and ins and outs, and maybe some of these players I've mentioned on the move in or out of the championship. Thank you very much for watching. Over and out. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button to see more videos from this channel. Hit the subscribe button and to be notified every time we upload. Ring the bell for those notifications to come through on your device. If you really want to support the channel and me as a content creator, I will be eternally grateful if you head over to the merch store and grab something, or support over on Patreon, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. Thank you for your time. Go and watch another video.